Welcome everyone to the Wednesday night live show. We have a lot of issues going on. Allison is having some power outages and tornadoes. Same thing with Tim and Philip. It's crazy, but Greg and I are here. Greg, welcome back. Part two, I think, is with you. Is this part two or part three?
This is two. This is the second time I've been on here.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. No. Weren't you on? Was that you in the gym?
Yeah, okay, I guess that was. So it is part three.
We're going to get you back on one of these days on the treadmill while doing the show and giving everybody legal advice.
And huffing and puffing while I do it, that's probably not a good idea.
We are back, though, everybody. Yeah, we're going to get through this show. Hopefully, Allison gets her Wi-Fi issue taken care of and her power. Prayers for them, guys. I don't know. I told her today, I said, I would rather have 2 or 3 earthquakes a year than having to deal with tornadoes and hurricanes. How about you?
Well, you know, Allison's talking about earlier, but they were under all these tornado watches. I'm like, I'm used to that here. There are times in the spring that we might go 3 or 4 days in a week and be under a tornado watch during some point. So, you know, I'm kind of used to that.
Yeah, I don't even really kind of even feel the earthquakes unless it's a nice big one or I'm really relaxed and comfortable when they happen. I usually don't feel them. I'll see it, oh, we had a 5.8 and I'm like, well, I didn't feel a damn thing. So the big ones scare the shit out of me because everything in my house shakes and my fans start moving around and the windows start rattling. But we haven't had a good big one since, I don't know, since 89, really, in this area.
Well, here, because we are in tornado country, I don't even see cover anymore unless I'm watching TV and they break in with live broadcast and they've got drones up and they've got this up and they've got this technology and that technology and it's wall-to-wall coverage. And if I'm watching the radar and I see that those little circle things aren't near me, I don't bother. If I see they might be coming towards me, I'll take cover. But not. A funny story. I was talking, it was last April, year ago April, to Amanda Wheeler. And I'm talking to her on the phone about the first time actually I'd ever sat down and actually talked to her at length. And my weather alarm goes off because we were having tornadoes that night. My weather alarm goes off and it just kept going off and going off and going off. And you could hear the siren blowing and tornado sirens blowing. She's like, do you need to go? And I'm like, nah, it's not close to us. And she's like, you are like unflappable. I can't believe you're in the middle of a tornado and you're sitting there just talking to me like it's nothing. Well, we're used to it. We're used to it.
I would have like an underground shelter built. I would have, and I would have a tunnel from the house to the shelter because I don't want to go. I wouldn't want to go outside just in case. So I'd have a lot.
I mean, I grew up, and I'll age myself a little bit, but anybody who knows anything about weather knows what April 3rd, 1974 was.
April 3rd, 1974. April 3rd, 1970 is my ex-wife's birthday.
No, that was the day of what was called the super outbreak. Mm-hmm. And so Louisville got hit with an F4 that day, right in the middle of the city at afternoon rush hour.
Oh.
And so I survived the super outbreak. So, the chances of having anything remotely close to that are nil. So, I feel it got close, but didn't hit, but close enough.
I think we're both about the same age. I'm 55.
I'm 56.
Okay. Yeah. So, I'm 1968 and you're 67. So, yeah.
No, I'm 66. Actually, I'm December 66.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, no, you're 56. Well, I'm 68. I was June 3rd, 1968. So,
well, I haven't had my birthday yet this year.
Okay. Well, Well, hey, I'm glad you're here, and I got a lot of questions, and some of the questions I was trying to go at it a different route with questions. I still have questions about some of the lawsuits and the appeals and stuff like that, but I kind of want to get a little bit about you and how you deal with vaping. Uh, as far as your inner circle, how you're treated as a vape lawyer with your colleagues. Do you ever get into those conversations with other lawyers?
Oh, absolutely, because the area of what we're dealing with is so small in particular that that's why there's only what 4 or 5 of us that are doing this.
Right.
And there's a lot of lawyers don't do regulatory work. They don't do, especially appeals and federal regulatory cases. And so, I've talked to a number of people, and yes, lawyers generally are aware of the Administrative Procedure Act. They're generally aware of administrative law, but they don't do it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And so, I had discussions with them, and I've had some people tell me, this is interesting stuff you're doing. It's groundbreaking stuff. Actually, one of my former managing partners had lunch with a couple weeks ago, and I told him, I go, greatest thing ever happened was me leaving that firm a decade ago because you all never would have let me work on this stuff.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, you're right. You're right. A lot of them look at this with an eye of suspicion because a lot of them don't know. And now there are a couple of attorneys I know that have tried vape products, have used vape products to try to quit smoking. And so they a little bit more identify with what I'm dealing with than just a common average ordinary person. But, we keep an open mind to stuff. We have to keep an open mind to stuff.
Well, this is kind of like it's not like your normal, like you said, it's not like your normal thing, and it's such a niche. I mean, it's with who's actually representing companies. Like you said, it's a small group of you guys. So, I mean, when I just kind of wonder how other lawyers. I know you guys. I guess I'm picturing Hollywood's lawyers, where after 5 o'clock, you guys are all hanging out at bars. You know how it is on movies and TV shows. You guys are all at 5 o'clock. You're hanging out. You're drinking whiskey. You're drinking scotch, and
It's nothing like what you see on TV.
I know.
I mean, they show the glamour of it. They don't show the delays. They don't show hurry up and wait. They don't show all the work you do to prepare for something.
Right.
To prepare for a hearing or to prepare for a deposition. They don't show you at a conference room table with everything spread out, with legal pads and you're making notes and going through documents to prepare for a deposition. They don't show that.
Right. Well, I always wondered how you guys talked about cases. I know this is kind of like a really an exciting case that you're dealing with because it's something that a lot of lawyers don't get to deal with, and with such a big scope, because this isn't just, you're not like representing just one state. You're trying to save the whole thing. So it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And I will tell you that the attorneys that are working on some of these cases regularly talk.
Yeah.
I talk with Eric Gotti and Azim Chowdhury all of the time, either by text message or by email. We're passing ideas back and forth. I talk to Eric Heyer, with Triton. Actually, I talked to Eric Heyer probably more than I talked recently to Eric and Azim, simply because we've got a case together down in Georgia involving a trademark issue.
Right.
The elf bar stuff. And so, we
talk
to each other.
You guys, yeah. I mean, you guys get to talk to each other and kind of strategize for different situations and kind of get an understanding how certain jurisdictions or certain states and lawyers and judges deal with vaping. And with you guys communicating with each other, I bet it kind of helps you on how you present your case wherever your case is compared to where the other case may be.
Yeah, and we come at the problem in a different manner. Right. I don't necessarily approach an analysis of a question involving this industry the same way that Azim does, for instance, or the same way Eric Heyer does, or Eric Gotti. They don't do things the way I do things. But I think at the end of the day, we sort of work together, and we throw out ideas, and sort of it's like an experimental lab, and we sort of go with what we think is good.
Right.
I give you an example. You know, the brief that the Keller Heckman and guys and I filed, Eric and Azim, here just last month, about a month ago, in the U.S. Supreme Court on that Chevron deference issue.
Right.
And we did that. You know, that was a matter of us working together, working the various drafts. Actually, I wrote the first draft. Eric Godin made improvements to it, and then we just tweaked it back and forth over a period of about a month and a half,
right,
to get the final product.
Right. So just for those that don't, I kind of got a gist of how things are taken care of when you're filing a court case or appeal case. This is judges deciding the fate of your guys, between you and the plaintiff, or I don't know, defendant and the plaintiff. I don't know what you guys, how it works with you guys as far as what you guys are doing with, but there isn't a jury. It's a federal judge deciding the fate of your case against whoever you're filing against, correct?
Well, that's correct. These are all cases that do not or so far haven't involved a jury. And the reason is that the appeals, especially on the MDOs, the agency has issued a final order. An MDO is a final order.
Right.
And then under the TCA, it provides the method of review. And the method of review is you file an appeal or petition for review more appropriately, with the appellate court where you reside, for that state where you reside. And then the court takes it up on review, and that review is in accordance with the Administrative Procedure Act. So it's very limited review. You're not bringing in new evidence. You have the record that was made before FDA. You don't have a jury trial. You don't have witnesses come in. You don't have testimony taken.
Yeah, no experts. Well, experts would be in your what do you call yours? I forget. You guys got a name of the paperwork that you turned in. What is it called again?
A brief.
A brief. There it is. But you have experts in your briefs, correct?
We will cite in our brief to scientific studies, for instance, that support different aspects of the question we're addressing. Okay. And so if you know, we're making an argument that FDA knows that these products are beneficial to smokers, we can cite the studies that FDA has relied. We can cite the guidance that FDA has issued, and then within that, cite to the studies that they've relied on for that finding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it all fascinating, and I was, you know, I understand, you know, that there wasn't a jury involved, but if there was a jury involved right now, would you be able to win this case if you had 12 jurors deciding the fate of vaping, and it was you against the FDA? Do you think you could sway 12 jurors right now?
You don't have to sway 12 jurors. You only got to sway 8.
That's right, 8.
You know, it depends on where you are, and it depends on who you draw. One of my managing partners used to say to me, he was actually my mentor coming up in practice, is that trying a case is like spitting in the wind.
Yeah.
You don't know what, it really is. When you pick a jury, and he told me this story. He tried a case in state court in the county just to the northeast of us. Was at that time much more rural county than it is now. And they drew 13 jurors, 12 and one alternate.
One alternate.
And it was a case involving stolen cattle. It was a civil case. And tried the case. Judge was getting ready to instruct the jury. They pulled the number out of the alternate, and it was a woman. So she left. Case went to the jury. He got a unanimous verdict in his favor, all 12 in his favor.
Oh, wow.
And as he was walking out of the courthouse that day, he saw the woman who got kicked off as the alternate. And she said to him, "You bamboozled that jury, and if I'd have been on that jury, I would have voted against you and made sure everybody else did too."
He picked the right one.
He won. Winning versus losing simply came down to which juror got picked as the alternate.
Yeah.
You have zero control over that.
Yeah.
And so trying a case is absolutely random. You control some things.
Yeah.
You don't control a lot of things.
Yeah. I always wondered that if it came down to 12 people deciding the fate of vaping, could we get like you said, 8 to agree with vaping and go against the FDA. And I always wondered that.
I don't know. Have you ever seen the movie 12 Angry Men?
I think I have, but it's been a while.
I mean, if you watch that movie, and I watched it again last week when I was flying to North Carolina for some depositions, and it's an interesting play on jury dynamics of what goes into, and you take a jury of 12 people, and you got folks from all walks of life, different experiences, different life experiences.
Right.
They bring their biases into the courtroom.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's an old movie. That's from 1957.
Mm-hmm. It's a classic.
It's a classic.
It really is I mean, if you look at the lineup of people in it,
Yeah.
Jack Klugman, Jack Lemmon, Lee J. Cobb, Fonda was in it.
Yeah.
Martin, what was his name? The guy was the foreman.
Bazimi, I can't say his name.
No, Martin. Was it Martin Balsam?
Balsam, yeah.
Okay. He was. Klugman was in it. I mean, some pretty heavyweight guys were in that movie.
Yeah. Damn. Oh, one of the links that Ali sent me was the reasons another appeals court accused the FDA of committing a surprise switcheroo. Oh, wow, really? I don't know if you had a chance to see that article.
I haven't. I've read the article. I've read the opinion actually when it came out yesterday morning, and I listened to the oral argument back in May when it was argued.
Yeah.
And this was a panel of funny. This is the first case we've had argued in front of a panel of 3 Republican judges, a majority of them appointed by Trump.
Right.
And actually, Judge Walker, who was on that panel, is from here in Louisville and used to be a federal judge here, used to be a law professor here too. But Judge Rao, Naomi Rao, wrote the opinion, and it involved 2 distinct questions: the flavored products and the unflavored products. I was disappointed in the ruling as regard to flavored products. In a way, I think the court copped out, especially when you look at how they analyzed for unflavored products.
Yeah.
Because the same reasons why FDA was arbitrary for unflavored products was also the same reason it was arbitrary on flavored products.
Yeah.
And the court missed a point. The court missed a point, and actually Fonda missed an opportunity to really argue something interesting here. And it first hit me when I was reading the opinion in this case, was the court talked about that the law, the Tobacco Control Act, requires FDA to consider the risk of non-users taking up the product. It's not the risk of youth non-users. It's the youth of all non-users, which would include adults. Now, what is the harm of an adult non-user using a vaped product? It's minimal.
Yeah.
Minimal. What's the risk of a youth non-user to a youth non-user picking up the product? That's a more substantial risk. But when you put the 2 groups together, what's it do? It lowers the overall threshold of that risk. So by FDA only looking at the risk to youth and not the risk to youth and adult non-users, they create an artificial threshold that no one's ever going to be able to meet. That is not what the law says. Fonda didn't argue that, and the court missed that subtle opportunity to make that point.
Yeah. Now, you said something that I didn't understand about this case here. This was something that was argued, right? So these were lawyers standing up, because this is the thing. I think a lot of us, I don't know, a lot of people in the chat and myself, but don't know that process. So this was actually a case where lawyers actually stood up and argued points and still had briefs, correct?
Yes, and what you do is you file the petition for review. You then file the petitioner, that is the company, files a brief, a red brief. A blue brief. The agency, in this case FDA, files a red brief, and then the petitioner, the company, files a gray brief, reply brief. And a panel of 3 judges is put together, and I forgot. Each court has a different number of judges,
Judges, yeah.
but three will be picked from that. It's not always random. It's in some cases you don't know who your panel is to the morning you get there for argument.
Oh, wow.
The court in Chicago, the federal court in Chicago, is like that because they do not want you to, in your preparation, be
Set up
focusing
for a
in
certain
any
day.
way. And let me tell you, in preparing for an oral argument, if I know who my panel of judges is, I go
Right,
do research to see how they've ruled on similar issues.
right.
And you kind of can pin them down sometimes.
Yeah. I can see why that's important in Chicago.
And they don't want you to be focused on them. They want you to be focused on your overall argument. And their position is it shouldn't matter who the judge is.
Yeah. And how typically how long does let's say this case typically how long did this case take to get to a final decision?
Well, the case was filed in October of last year.
Oh, wow.
Fonham was filed in October of last year. It moved pretty quick. This moves very quickly.
Okay.
So, I mean, this was less than a year. It was filed in October of last year. The briefing was due sometime late 2022, early 2023. It was argued the end of May this year, and the decision comes out the end of August. So you're looking at about 4 months.
Right. Is this something that say you as an attorney are dealing with that whole time? So how many times would you be standing in front of a judge?
Once.
Once. That's it, huh? And then
Yeah.
they go away and they do their thing for 4 months and decide how it's going. Is that how it works?
Or can take longer.
Oh.
I've got a case here in Kentucky right now. It doesn't involve vaping. It's a totally separate thing. And normally, from the time the case is submitted here in state court, you're looking at 3 to 4 months for an opinion.
Yeah.
This case was submitted in November, and I still don't have a decision.
Yeah. Wow. It just makes me wonder why 3 judges need that long to think this out. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot going on. I mean, but it would seem like with all the information they have up front by both you and the other party, it just doesn't. It seems like it's just a long period of time to sway someone's decision.
Well, actually, the way things work in the practice of law is glacial. Very few things happen fast.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, these appellate courts, how many thousands of cases they handle a year.
Yeah.
And that 3-judge panel might hear, like for instance, the Seventh Circuit, they might hear 6 cases in one day.
Okay.
And so their law clerks will have to write a draft opinion.
Yeah.
But those judges will meet probably after the oral arguments for the day and sort of vote tentatively on how they're going to rule.
Mm.
And then whichever the senior judge in the majority is, then has the task of either writing the opinion or assigning the opinion to one of the other judges in the majority. And then you might have a dissenting opinion that has to be written. And they can't release the opinion until the dissenting opinion also is, attached onto it and is done.
Yeah.
It can take a while. That's just part of it. They've got to write the opinions. The majority has to agree on the opinion. How everything it's worded in it, they've all got to agree on.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that it's just me and you today, because these are a lot of questions that I've always had on my mind when it comes to lawyers and what's taking place in the vape thing. Because we're kind of closed. This closed doors. A lot of this is closed. Not the general public can't come to these and sit down and listen to your arguments. Correct?
They can, and actually, a lot of them are broadcast live streamed on YouTube or through the website for the court.
Okay. Yeah, I had no idea that was. No one's ever brought that up to me or told me that any of this stuff was ever being live streamed. I always thought it was closed doors. You guys can go in there, do your thing, and the process moves forward. But I never had any clue of that whole process. That's why today I'm kind of glad that it's just you and I could get some of the answers. And I think some of our people out there in chat, I think, are thinking the same thing. How's this process all work? who's representing who. That seems to be the big questions. A lot of people are like, okay, who is Greg representing when he goes to court, and who is this lawyer representing? Because everybody kind of seems right now, it's just like when I look at the feed, the news, or like Vaping 360 or any vaping news whatsoever, this lawyer's over here dealing with this lawyer's over here dealing with this. It's kind of, everyone's kind of like doing their own thing, so it's kind of really hard to really kind of keep track of what's going on and who these lawyers are representing. As far as are any of you guys representing consumers in general, just consumers, or is it basically right now everybody is representing some sort of e-liquid company or distribution center?
It's either that or it's one of the trade associations.
Okay, the trade association. I forgot about the trade associations.
Well, no, because the brief that the Keller-Heckman attorneys and I filed last month was on behalf of a number of trade associations, national and state.
Yeah. If you guys have a question for Greg, let me know in the chat, because today it's just free for. We're just gonna have some fun today. So now I'm gonna have some fun with you, Greg. What is Greg's favorite beer of choice? Are you a beer drinker?
Occasionally, and probably either Guinness or Smithwick's.
All right, Guinness, man. I love my Guinness myself. Warm Guinness or cold Guinness?
Oh, cold always.
Cool. Yeah, if you guys have a question for Greg, let me know, and I'll put it up there. But today is kind of let everybody know Allie is dealing with a hurricane, so she has a power outage, and then she got her power back, and the internet's out. Philip's out doing something. Tim's doing something today. So, and then Paul is doctor's appointment. So it's just me today. It's just me. So we'll do our best as we can. And I don't know. I like my thing says I'm not a lawyer, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, Greg. How about you?
I could say that I am, and I prefer Hilton.
I'm a Marriott kind of guy myself because I get a discount. So.
I do either, but mainly Hilton is my first choice.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about what you've been working on. So I'll share a little bit about what you've been going through here lately, and any wins for you.
Well, yeah, a few things. Not all vape related. Most interesting thing I've got going on right now is I've got a product liability case in Lexington, just east of here, involving a Delta 8 vape pen.
Oh, wow. Delta vape? Oh, okay.
Delta 8 vape. I represent a manufacturer in North Carolina who is being sued, as well as the retailer in Lexington, which is also a company out of North Carolina, and the two employees that work at the retailer, by a guy who came in who's got anxiety, apparently pretty bad. And he's got a number of other underlying health problems, depression, AFib, blood pressure, so forth, is on a bunch of different meds, all of which contraindicate using Delta 8. One of his coworkers suggested, hey, you ought to try this Delta 8 thing for your anxiety since your meds aren't working. So he goes into this store and tells him he wants a Delta 8 vape pen for his anxiety. Doesn't bother to tell them all of his other underlying medical conditions or the meds he's on. And it says clearly in the box, don't use this while driving. Fortunately, there is a crystal clear and several different angles of this 4K surveillance video showing the clerk behind the counter pointing to the back of the box, explaining the warnings.
Yeah.
Guess what the genius does?
Of course.
he is sitting at a stoplight and hits it.
Yeah.
A single puff. Now, tell me if this is plausible. I don't buy it. Single puff, inhales it, immediately exhales it. 30 to 45 seconds, he's feeling dizzy and disoriented.
I wouldn't know. Even as a lightweight, I don't think one puff. I mean, I can't see that in 34 seconds. Yeah. No,
I don't either.
No.
I don't either. And we figure what happened was that he hit it while he was at a stoplight, and 30 to 45 seconds is the time that the light would have been red. And then he starts to drive, realizing that I shouldn't be driving. But he continues driving, and he hits the city bus at 50 miles an hour. And he's suing, claiming the product is defective.
No, it worked. It did what it's supposed to do.
And so it's an interesting case. I'll probably get out of it because my client, the court doesn't have jurisdiction over my client, and that became evident in depositions in North Carolina last Thursday or last Friday. That's an interesting case. I mentioned the trademark case. Those people who've been keeping up with the dispute over Elf Bar, the trademark dispute over Elf Bar, I'm involved in that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I
think Allie talked about that. Yeah.
I represent a chain of 6 retailers in Savannah, Georgia. We're in federal court. They got sued by VPR Brands, alleging that and VPR owns the mark or has the mark trademark registered, claiming that my client infringed on its trademark by selling Elf branded products. The Elf branded products it got came from another company. This was a Chinese company that happened to have been the first in line to make these products. So the question is, who has the right to priority over this mark? And come to find out, VPR, the products that they are selling came from an origin that was after the fact. And so what happened was VPR brought this lawsuit, and their lawyer was really snotty. He was really nasty. He called me up and talked to me, and he's like, I'm going to fuck your people up and so forth. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, you really have no idea who you're talking to in the contacts I've got. Because I knew who my client got the products from, and I know Eric Heyer represents them.
Yeah.
And Eric calls me up and he goes, we're going to have some fun because I also represent the manufacturer of the product as well. And so basically we worked out how we're going to do this to get them involved in the case to turn the tables on VPR. And now VPR is wanting to run away from the case and dismiss it.
So it says here that the Elf Bar was smacked with a lawsuit and sued for trademark infringements. As this is a U.S. legal issue, the name Elf Bar will be changed to EB Design.
Yeah, that's what they did. And it was a Shenzhen company, a Chinese company, assigned it to iMiracle, which is the current owner of the mark and the current manufacturer of the mark. And so to avoid because they got an injunction against them in Florida, and they've appealed that. But while that appeal is pending, they've rebranded. But we're being sued for selling Elf Bar products.
Right.
That this Shenzhen company made.
Yeah. And it said the Elf Bar name will continue to be used in the UK and other markets around the world. So
because VPR doesn't have a mark there. They only have the mark here, but they've made misrepresentations to get their mark. Our allegation is they lied to the trademark office, and that warrants cancellation of their mark. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to cancel their mark.
Right. Are there a lot of trademark within this industry?
Actually, there's not.
And that's I was trying to think of that. I was just thinking, I know it's a difficult process and a lot of money. And a lot of these companies, unfortunately, a lot of the owners of a majority of the e-liquid companies were very young individuals that were just happy to make fist over, dollars over fist, whatever that saying is, weren't thinking of trademark stuff. But
actually, they weren't thinking of trademark stuff in another way. There's been far more trademark infringement in the vape industry than there has been actual trademarks.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I remember I was at a trade show in Dublin, Ireland in the summer, in June of 2017. And there was a kid there that had a product. It was a sour apple liquid called Jolly Dripper.
Jolly Dripper.
And he, his branding, his packaging, his label, the font, color, stylistics, and everything was Jolly Rancher.
Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about, actually.
And I didn't know who owned the trademark at the time, but I knew it was going to be somebody, national company owned it. And I told the kid at the show, I go, dude, you've got to rebrand this and rebrand it as soon as you get back to the States, because it's a ticking time bomb for you're going to get a cease and desist letter.
Yeah.
Someone owns this brand and they ain't going to let you get by. And said, this isn't even close. You haven't even tried to make this your own.
Yeah.
And so this was early August. So this was about maybe 6 weeks later. I'm in my car driving back to my office from court. My phone rings. I recognize the voice on the other end. It's him. And he's like, hey, man. And I'm like, so when'd you get the cease and desist? And he goes, how'd you know? And I said, because it was blanking predictable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he emails it to me. It was 50 some odd pages, like 3 pages of letter from this huge law firm in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, the trademark owner is Hershey.
Oh, shit. Yeah, you're done. Yeah.
And not only that, was this lawyer had color copies, screenshots or off the internet of all of the different examples of this product being offered for sale on various websites. And it had the date. She printed these above it on the header.
Yeah.
All of them after I told this guy to stop using the brand.
No, let me answer. Curtis, that's the professional setup behind me. I have 2 setups. When I do my other show, I'm on that side. No, yeah. I mean, that was the thing when you said 56 pages. I'm kind of dealing with something else and I had my lawyer, and my lawyer's like, don't worry about it. We'll flood him with paperwork. So when you said that, I'm thinking of what my lawyer said to me when I was sitting in his office. He goes, no, don't worry about it. We'll flood him with paperwork.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. And I've done the same thing, but I tell this kid, I go, I'm not going to represent you, one, because you're in an indefensible position. Yeah. I told you 6 weeks ago you need to rebrand this, and they're showing that you ignored me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, first off, if you're not going to listen to what I tell you, then what I'm going to do for you now is going to be mean, and so I'm not going to go down that road. Plus, it's going to really, I think, impact my credibility,
right,
with industry people if I take this on.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly that time you're talking about, because it was horrible. And I've been a vape photographer for a very long time, so I used to take a lot of pictures for a lot of companies, and I used to get a lot of DMs in my Instagram, and they would send me a picture of their product, and I was always about advocacy. So when they sent me a picture of their product, if I felt like that was just too childish and too stupid looking, and I would just said no. They would send it to me and I would send it back. But I remember, the boxes that look like the Apple Jacks, or the box that looked like the apple juice, and I was just thinking to myself, why, guys? Why are you doing this? We're already under the microscope, and you're just making things worse. And I get it. It's the same thing with whatever product you're talking about. You want to get your product out there. You want to showcase it. You want to be the in thing. But it just seems like if you had a very good product, you didn't need all the flash on the box. I mean, there was a point in time that when a product took off, an e-liquid juice that became very popular, a lot of those companies could have got away with a white box that just said the name on it, because that's how and the vapor or the company, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, and some of the brand names. I was at showcase, a vape showcase in Atlanta in March of, I guess, 17. And I was on the floor talking to some manufacturers, and I was talking about branding. And I said, take for instance, just an example, Alien Piss. What a stupid name for an e-liquid. Who wants to use something that's got the word piss in it?
Yeah.
And the owner was standing there. He goes, well, that's my product. I don't care. It's a stupid name.
Yeah. Well, I kind of get the other side of it, kind of like, playing a little bit of devil's advocate. Yes, we are adults. We should be able to, have fun still and have fun products and stuff like that. I get that part of it, But when now that we look back, we can see how much that has hurt the industry in the very beginning, because it just, even prior to Jewel, correct? Even prior to when Jewel got in trouble, we were already down that road. So
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
which,
absolutely,
which made
absolutely.
no
And
sense that Jewel.
it made no sense. And Jewel actually, you know what? If you look at it, Jewel's branding wasn't a problem. Jewel's branding was probably some of the most professional we've
Yeah,
seen. It was very generic. It was
yeah,
a very sharp branding. They
yeah,
didn't need to be gimmicky. You know why? They let the product speak for itself.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, to me, I never really had a chance to kind of go back and look at some of their promotions and the way they were promoting that product. But to me, I still stick to it. That product was just friggin' just amazing, amazing, and a great product. And they could have just had a guy in a suit walking out of a building, pulling a jewel out of his suit, and they still would have been selling them out the fucking wazoo, because everybody just fell in love with that product. And I'm willing to bet when those guys sat down and they were designing the jewel, that's who they had in mind. They had the guy that works the 9 to 5 in an office, that wears a suit, that doesn't have time to make coils, doesn't have time to rewick a coil, doesn't have time to change, refill a pod or refill a sub ohm tank. They just wanted something that was slim, black, white, whatever color, just simple color, black, and that fit in their suit, didn't make any bullshit, and it was just a perfect product. I believe it's, to this day, nothing has been better than the Jewel. Honest to God.
Well, it has its. I've always said, great product, lousy company management.
Yeah, yeah,
And the branding is one thing. The way that they marketed it was something totally different.
yeah,
The way they marketed this cannot be accepted.
yeah. But do you think? Do you think, because this is all right, this is what I remember, and maybe you remember it differently, but in the beginning, before Jules started making that move to number one, the old boys, the old school guys, they were just like, fuck this product. This is bullshit. This isn't, what we were in. We want you to buy our lead liquid. We want you to come to a vape shop. We want you to buy tanks. We want you to buy bulky mods. Fuck you, Jewel. You think if they would have gotten that support from the old school vapors, would it made a difference the way they would have marketed that product?
It might have, but you have to remember also what Jewel was and how it came about. I
Right.
don't know if you know the history of that. It was a graduate school project
Right.
for engineering grad students at Stanford.
Right. It was for pot too. It wasn't designed for, well, whatever, HTC, correct?
THC. It had but it
THC.
had dual use. It had dual usage.
Yeah.
But they also at Stanford had all of the tobacco files that had been accumulated. That was the repository for them. They've been, collected back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
It had all the marketing plans from all of the big tobacco companies. These guys consulted those.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what I remember. I mean, I remember them getting shit on by the old school vapors, and this is stupid, this is dumb, this is crap, it's not good, and I just felt like they were out there on their own trying to market something, and I think if they would have just stuck to that professional market, I do you think they would have, if they would have stuck to the professional market, I think they would have had the issue, because the way the product was selling was just insane. I mean, at one point they had what, 82% of the market?
Yeah, I think there still would have been the youth use problem, whether they marketed it that way or not, simply because of the channels they sold it through.
Well, yeah, I get that part, but I think if they would have stuck with the professional market, if they would have marketed as a professional product, and yes, it got in the hands of youth, I don't think PAVE and the FDA could have falled back on the fact that the marketing was designed around the youth market. If they would have kept their marketing towards the suit guy, the 9 to 5 guy, the guy that doesn't want to deal, that guy, and not had the marketing that they had, I don't think that the FDA or PAVE or any of the other anti-vape groups could have fallen back on the way they marketed the product.
Oh, I think so. And I think the way that they went about their marketing, to your point,
Yeah,
had they done the adults was the primary target audience, I think something that has happened, the history is showing has already happened, would have
yeah,
happened much sooner, and that is the development of the disposables.
right, right.
That evolution of from if you think about this, it went from the vape pen to the mod to the pod to the disposable. And
Yeah,
the disposables now are a majority of the thing. And he's right. The
yeah.
old
They still
schoolers
do.
hate
They still
hate
do.
hate hate disposables.
Yeah,
But that's the way, that's the direction the market is going.
yeah. Well, it's going that way because it's being forced that way. But I mean, I even back 10 years ago, I could understand the frustration because I ran into that frustration and where the tank would leak, or I couldn't, I didn't know how to make a coil, I didn't know how to wick a coil, I didn't want to have to go buy a package of 18650 batteries and a charger and deal with all this stuff. It would have been a lot easier, the transition, but with disposables, they gave you everything in one little package, and you didn't have to refill it. You didn't have to do anything at all. Just get a new pod, new cartridge, drop it in there, and go. And
Mm-hmm.
it was brilliant because there's that guy that's standing in. Let's be honest. There's that guy that's standing in line at the AM PM or whatever supermarket or mini market that you're at, that has this spontaneous moment where he just decides that today is going to be the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was there. It was there to fill that need, and where it would have been hard for that to be sold at that time to that individual that was smoking. That guy that's smoking 3 packs a day for 20 years, he's not going to grab this. He doesn't want anything to do with this. But if he can grab a disposable and he doesn't have to do anything when he's done with it, throw it in the fucking garbage and go buy a new one. I get it. You know what I mean?
Well, and you look at it this way too: is the people that really do prefer the mod.
Yeah.
Well, there are certain circumstances where having a mod with you really, if you're traveling, especially if you're flying, much easier to have a disposable with you
Yeah.
than it is to have a mod. Because you got to bring the liquid with you, which you can't get through TSA, which you have to put in your bag, which
Yeah.
tends to leak. You don't have those problems with the disposable.
Yeah. Well, yeah, where I go back to is the old classic blues marketing when they came out with their product. It was an adult looking advertising platform, and they got TV. They got TV. They were in
Mm-hmm.
magazines.
Mm-hmm.
They were on billboards. They were everywhere, and they just had this very clean approach to it. And I just don't understand. Maybe it just wasn't as popular then for the teens to jump on board. But I mean, what do you feel like was it just that it wasn't a popular product yet, or was it just their clean adult like marketing for that product?
Part of it was the adult marketing, but you also have to remember too that back in that era, these were things were so new, and some of those initial first second generation products, really the quality of them compared to today left a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, the kids were using the open system products, but not as much.
Yeah.
And they did develop ways to hack the pods. They were
Yeah.
supposed to be sealed. They anybody with a diabetes syringe could do
Yeah.
that, hack that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jewel really kicked off, and the way they marketed really kicked off.
Yeah.
And then it just transitioned to the disposables
Well,
for kids after that point.
I looked at a
Kids, kids,
couple of their
kids,
old.
kids that are going to make a point here. Kids that are going to use this, and
Right.
and the NTS, the NYTS tells us this.
Yeah.
They want something easily accessible, inexpensive, easily concealable.
Yeah.
Those three things, and
Yeah.
those are three things that the tank systems aren't.
Yeah. I mean, is there when it, this is kind of a weird, but when is it going to be a go? When is it going to go against the seller? When is it eventually the FDA, law enforcement? When are they eventually going to say we can't control this? The manufacturer can't control this. We need to go after the fucking store. When is that ever? Is that ever going to happen?
Well, your question sort of misses the whole point of why FDA is doing what FDA is doing.
Yeah.
It's not about the store. It's not
Right.
about the retailer.
Right.
It is about these products. Their very existence creates a lot of financial problems for a lot of folks, including FDA.
Yeah. I just, I know it's tough. I know it's bullshit, but eventually, we both, you and I both grew up in a generation where we've seen people get arrested on stings in liquor stores with teenagers going in using fake IDs and trying to buy alcohol and selling it to them, and then the cops would come storming in and open the register and look for that marked bill, and
Oh yeah,
they got arrested. I, I I'm going to ask you, when's the last time you even seen one of those take place? It's for me, it's been 12, 13 years since the last one I've seen.
I know they still do it, but I haven't ever been there, when it's happened.
Yeah.
I do know they still do happen.
Yeah. I haven't seen one. You would think that would be something, well, it would be something in the newspaper or on the local news, but I know that once that does happen, they cardboard and they cover all the alcohol with paper wherever the alcohol refrigerator units is. As part of the punishment is those refrigerator doors are covered with paper so you can't see the alcohol. So that's how I know if this store has been involved in a sting. And then they would post it. They would have their little sign that was in the front of the store that would say, this store was cited, blah, 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 for selling alcohol to minors. I have not seen any of those. I haven't seen covered alcohol doors. I haven't seen signs in front of businesses saying they've been busted. So it just makes me wonder when I know not the FDA's problem or anybody else's problem, but when are they going to officially at once start doing what maybe like Australia is doing, where if you get caught doing this, it's going to financially hurt you.
It's going to take some more winning fights to ever get to that point. And again, it's FDA isn't really concerned with that.
Yeah.
If they were, they would have taken care of this problem a long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay. FDA does enough to keep the anti-tobacco groups appeased and to keep the court in Maryland appeased.
Yeah.
The Judge Grimm appeased. They do just enough, and to keep the members of Congress appeased. The typical, normal, regular suspects, Dick Durbin type, appeased. They're not going doing wholesale. They could have taken care of this problem a long time ago.
Yep.
If they really wanted to, they could have gone in and to vape shops and issued mass citations for and also to manufacturers of child branded products. They could have interdicted this a long time ago, and they didn't.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, the vape shops aren't the ones. I mean, I'm not going to stick up for every single vape shop, but I know a majority of them card. They ask how old you are, and they've been doing that since 2012. So I remember. So they've always, even the shop here in Modesto where I live. I don't look like I'm under 21, but there was at that time when I was going in there, it was 18. You had to be 18 or older before they changed the law. So, they were carding everybody that was coming in here because, this generation that's a little smaller, not as hairy as us, our generation, we look 20, we look 21. This Gen Z and the millennials, they looked a lot younger than we did. So they looked like they were 15, 16 when they were 20.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I get it. And, there are some stores and all power to them. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you come walking in, it doesn't matter if you come in every day to buy something. Yeah. They card you.
Yeah, I had that in an Arco, not an Arco. Yeah, no, it was an Arco, and it was on Highway 5. I was heading to LA, and I ran into the store, and I got a gray beard, everything, gray hair. And I went in there to buy a pack of Camel filters, and the guy goes, "Can I see your ID?" And I looked at him and go, "Seriously?" I go, I'm old enough to be your father. He goes, I don't care. I need to see ID. I had to go back to my car to go get
And
ID.
and you know what? I guarantee you they have a very low incident of youth
Yeah.
use. And that may be an indicator that they may have been cited before.
Yeah. Yeah, because he was young. He was maybe 18 or 19. I just looked at him. I said, I got a son older than you. So you're not, do I not look? He goes, well, we're told to 35 and up. And I go, well, dude, if I look 35, thank you. But I was close to about 40 something at that time. So I went back to the car and got my ID so I could buy a pack of smokes, which is good. I mean, that's the way it should be. But like,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I,
Absolutely. But I think we have to reconcile ourselves to the fact that no matter what we do, no matter how good we do it, no matter how clean we do it,
yeah,
it's not going to be enough for FDA
no, yeah.
because they've got an agenda, and it really is not only the moving goalposts, but the moving field under your feet.
Yeah. Yeah, because there was an article I read a couple years ago where they did a little test or whatever survey, whatever you want to call it, in New York City in the Bronx area, where they went into 10 bodegas, and out of the 10, 8 of them sold to minors. I started laughing, and this was prior to Cuomo nonsense of of tobacco or with vaping and flavors and stuff like that, and I thought to myself, that's your problem right there. I mean, why aren't you going after these retailers? Why aren't you making these fines not a slap in the wrist, but a fucking financial jeopardy, something that's going to make this guy say to himself, I'm not going to sell to you. $4 and or what, not $4, sorry, $12 a pack of cigarettes is not going to, make me sell you. I'm not going to profit enough to sell you to a minor. And I think, if this could the citizens, I mean, I don't even know how to do it. Can the general public force the retailers to start doing more?
No, not really. I mean, short of standing there with picket signs, and they're going to make you stand out in the far part of the property. But why did Cuomo and in the administration not do anything? It boils down to politics. Those are mainly convenience stores.
Yeah.
Do you know who one of the strongest? But do you know who one of the strongest political lobbies in the country is? The convenience store
I'm going to
lobby.
say it's pharmaceutical or it's pot now too, right? Because it's one of those two.
But mainly the problems we've had have been in convenience stores, which in many cases also were gas stations.
That's true.
Two of the biggest lobbying groups in the country are the Association of Convenience Stores and the National Petroleum Marketers Association.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a hypothetical question out to you, but if we would have came out with a system that had to be adapted in every store that sold vaping devices, where they would had to have scanned every driver's license before selling a vape, would you think that would have made a difference?
Well, that technology exists.
Yeah, it does, right?
And FDA, what's even worse is FDA knows about it. It's been demonstrated for them of how it works and the efficacy of it.
Yeah.
If FDA really cared about this, that would have been put in a marketing standard a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm just, it's just, to me, the nonsense that we're going through. And like I said, a lot of times I get upset. I get a little bit upset when everything kind of stays within our little circle, because what I've noticed is anytime I talk to somebody outside my circle of vaping that in this area of Modesto, and I kind of try to explain to them what's going on with our industry, they just start laughing that they literally cannot believe that it's about flavors, and how the FDA is targeting flavors with youth when there's flavored alcohol, there's flavored, all kinds of stuff that is an adult product. So they always laugh, and the first thing that always comes out of majority of my friends' mouths are, "Wow, they could do this with coffee." And I go, "Yeah, they could do this with coffee. Can you imagine that?" I always joke about some senator one day waking up and looking at his bank statement and seeing that his son is spending $900 a month at Starbucks, and he gets a little upset and goes after Starbucks and just says, "Hey, you're targeting youth drinking caffeine coffee, and if it's because of your caramel frappuccino, and going after them for that."
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, because I mean that's what I kind of get upset about, is because it just seems like I always bring it up to whoever I'm interviewing, is just like Jim. We had Jim last week. I want to hear ideas. I want to hear ideas how we can sell this to the outside and get our voice heard outside. And
Well,
when I get the
I,
same response, it
right.
really upsets me.
Well, it's funny. We find ourselves in a position now that I think is different than pre-COVID, as far as perception goes. And I've had people tell me this that were not lawyers, just regular people I talk to.
Yeah.
And talking to regular people, you sort of try to get a feel for what the vibe is.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be a part of an echo chamber. I want to know what other people are thinking outside this bubble.
Yeah.
And I've had people tell me, if you would have told me this story before COVID, I would have thought you were a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
But knowing what I know now about the FDA and the CDC and how corrupt they are and how dishonest they are, I can see where this happened.
Yeah. Well, that's what I get from my friends. My friends are always like, this is really concerning the FDA?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's a huge deal." I said, "This is a huge industry." And they're like, "Well," and for some reason I don't understand. They still think a majority. I don't know if it's everyone out there or it's just my area, but a majority of the people in this area think it's still this small niche. And when I throw out 65 million vapors worldwide, they're just blown away. They're like, "No way." And I'm like, "Yeah, how many?" They still feel like it's this small group of people, and I think that's our fault, because we keep everything. Well, not just our fault, but of course the media kind of keeping it out of the 24-hour news cycle. But and us keeping it within our own little group. But they're shocked. They're surprised. They had no realize this is gone into a $1 billion industry.
Well, and what's funny? It shows you how the media has flipped. You look back in the 80s and 90s, the media mauled the big tobacco companies.
Right.
When it came out, when Jeff Wigand came out with his as a whistleblower, and then the tobacco documents came out, and the people from the tobacco companies testified before Congress, all those things. If you look at how the media treated that situation,
Right.
with honesty,
Yeah.
compared to how the media is treating things now dishonestly, that is a large part of the problem.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Jim and I ask everybody else on this show. How do we get that out there? What would you say would make it that you would do differently to try to get this outside of the circle?
It's basically talk to people outside your circle, one by one. And, and I'll tell you this, there are doctors that on the record will tell you they can't support this, but off the record tell you they will.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. I'm not going to mention his name.
Right.
I know one of the foremost retinal experts in retinal ophthalmology in the world. He and his wife have helped create the treatments for macular degeneration. He's pretty good. When the Saudi royal family has a problem, they summon him. Okay. On the record, he won't say this, but off the record,
Right.
and I know this because he has told me this because he sees me every year. Off the record, he tells me, "I agree with what you're doing. I think you're on the right path here." And the reason for it is he's treated and Rand Paul has said the same thing to some of our people here in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And he's also a ophthalmologist, is that they both have treated way too many people that are smokers for disabling eye disorders. and they're tired of it. And if technology comes along that will make you stop smoking and reduces your risk of an eye disorder,
Right.
they're all for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just for me. Like I do it the way I started, and I felt like when I first started, the only people that I had to try to get to understand why this is working for me was my family. So I started with them, and to the point where I was like, "Hey, I'll send you this link. Go ahead and check it out and read it." Now, I have an aunt that's a nurse, okay, and she's been a nurse for almost 40 years, and she retired. And she was my biggest skeptic, of course, right? Old school nurse from the
Mm-hmm.
old days. She can remember when doctors were bedside with a freaking cigarette in their mouth, filling out a chart. So she was my hardest one, but she picked up on it very quickly. She told me, she's like, your skin. She goes, I noticed right away because of your skin. Your skin is not as oily and as wrinkly. Your face looks more alive than it did before. She said that I look like Droopy Dog. And of course, I was in the cab of a truck for 15 hours smoking almost 3 packs a day. What my skin was going to look like. But that was the first thing she picked up on. So I told her, yeah, I feel a lot better, and my skin feels, it's not as oily in my face. My skin feels good. I'm not so tired. I can walk. I can run. I went back to running. I my whole life changed from switching over to this product, and she picked up on it. And then she did her little research. But like I always tell everybody, start with your family. If you don't feel comfortable enough yet to talk to somebody outside of your circle, because times have changed now. People are not going to, like 12 years or 10 years ago, people were very curious. If they saw you vaping on the street, they had questions for you, right? You remember
Mm-hmm.
that?
Oh yeah.
Those days are gone. It's basically they see you, they got a snarl on their face. Now they're not asking you what flavor is that, what is that. They're not asking that any longer. They already have drawn an opinion. So I feel like it's your responsibility to kind of help change that person's opinion of vaping, especially if you see them snarling. You say, hey, this is how it's helped me. And I think, we always talk about the personal story, and sharing your personal story with those people outside of our circle is just a great way to start. But have studies that you memorize them, share that information, share Dr. Mendelsohn's stuff, share what the Royal College of Physicians are saying. And then kind of stay away from the conspiracy stuff, because you said it, and I've been saying it for years. We sound like fucking cuckoos, like we should have aluminum foil on our head, right?
Well, I think the best scenario is where someone has been a smoker for many, many years, has had some health issues, and their doctor is able to confirm to them, you're in a much better position now than you were before you stopped smoking.
Yeah.
And when the doctors themselves see it with their own patients, observational, you can read a study that how this is supposed to work. But once you're a doctor and you actually see it work,
Yeah.
then I think it gives them more buy-in. And I know there are instances where doctors do refer their patients to vape shops.
Yeah. We've been vaping long enough, and we've have enough people vaping today in the United States that there should be some fucking chest X-rays out there that look amazing, that are not being shared by the guy that was been smoking for 25 years. Now has been vaping for 10 years, and you know how it is when you get a certain age, you get a chest X-ray. It's a common thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you would assume when a doctor sees a chest X-ray from a guy that was a 25-year smoker and sees dramatic improvements in your lungs, selling point.
Well, it's not just the chest X-ray, but you also check the other vitals. The
Right.
pulse ox, percentage. You
Yeah.
you check. You can do the breathing test on them to see how what functional they are,
Right.
and their blood pressure,
Yeah.
their cholesterol, all of the things that are vital signs
Yeah.
are going to indicate better for you. Hopefully, if you have quit smoking and you're vaping instead.
Yeah. Well, I also I don't know if this is just me, but it's something that I've noticed. But I've noticed that if I don't vape an hour before I go do my doctor's appointment, I have a better blood pressure than I do if I go in after I've had a couple puffs of my vape. And doesn't that have the nicotine have some sort of effect on your heart rate, correct?
Nicotine does, and your blood pressure, because
Yeah, your blood pressure.
nicotine is a vasodilator.
Yeah.
So it's going to dilate the blood vessels.
Right.
It's going to make you actually more active.
Right.
It's a stimulant. Nicotine is a stimulant.
Right, but for someone my age going in with a higher BP is not a good thing. So I have always tried not to vape an hour before my doctor's appointment, because I've noticed I get a better blood pressure rate, a normal one from my age at 55, than I do if I say I hit my vape and then go into my doctor's appointment.
Oh, absolutely. I agree there. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my point. I mean, eventually these doctors have. I mean, it's technically 12 good years in, right? Maybe 13, right? Now that it's been that we should have a good general idea of the health benefits of this product with smokers that are quit and they're vaping. And are they just hiding this information? These doctors are seeing this. I see him. That's the first thing he does. He grabs my chest X-ray and he throws it up on that fucking thing, and he looks at it and he looks good.
Well, but back when we were kids, a lot of doctors were on their own. They were independent.
Yeah.
You went to your general practitioner. He was the person you dealt with. But now so many doctors are affiliated with a hospital, because hospitals have bought out so many individual practices, and they're part of a practice group. So you kind of have to toe the company line.
Yeah.
The hospital line.
Yeah.
And the hospital line is this is not good.
Yeah.
And it's not good. It's not good because it affects profits.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you say to that person that says, "Do you vape?" And can I just say no comment?
I say, you say to him, yeah, I probably vape, and I'm taking money out of your pocket.
When I remember when they added that to the thing, I was just like, "You sons of bitches! You had to add that to the questionnaire, huh? You had to add it. It wasn't good enough that you had smoking down there. Now you got to add, do you vape and how much you vape?"
Well, and the sad thing is, and it sounds cynical, and it is cynical. If the medical profession and the people who regulate the medical profession really cared about patients, really cared about their well-being and their health, doing anything possible to get them to stop smoking or to reduce their smoking should be priority one.
Yeah.
And any product that does that or helps do that should be hailed as a godsend.
Yeah. And Jamie, I don't drink coffee an hour and a half before my doctor's appointments as well, because it does the same thing to me. I've noticed any caffeine, because I used to drink a pot of coffee and then have I'd have an early doctor's appointment at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and I drink a whole pot of coffee, and then of course I'm hitting my vape the whole time. And I would get to the doctor's office and he would ask me, "Am I okay?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm good. Maybe I shouldn't have had that pot of coffee, and my vape before I got in here." So I kind of changed the way I go to my doctor's appointment. No caffeine and no nicotine an hour before my appointment. And it seems he seems happier with me, which is important nowadays, right? When your doctor's happy with you.
So in other words, you've gone to your doctor before and you've imitated Beavis doing cornholio.
Yeah. Maybe I should do a couple of shots of tequila and then go see him. See what happens there.
Well, I know what happens if you hit a Delta 8 pin before you drive.
Oh no, yeah, I wouldn't do that. No, I wouldn't do that. They would probably ask me if I needed. They would probably put me in a room if I hit one of those right now. I haven't touched that stuff in a good since my son was born. So 91 was the last time I actually touched any of those kind of drugs. And that was it. Once I saw my son born, I was like, okay, it's time to be a grown up. And that was it for me. Hey, if you guys got questions out there, put them up there. I got a question for you. Can I sue the FDA? as a consumer, can I go and sue the FDA for what they're doing and taking away my flavors in my vape?
Well, the problem you've got is, do you have standing? And standing is a legal prerequisite to even get in the door.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to show a tangible injury traceable to FDA's actions.
Well, a traceable injury would be me going back to smoking.
Well, but then you have to be able to show what that tangible injury is, not that you're going to go back to smoking, but that it's for certain going to cause you to get cancer, which you can't do.
Yeah. I always wondered that. I was like, it got to the point that I talked about advocacy so much that I was having dreams where I was suing the FDA. So now I know I can't do it.
Now, what would be the best way to do this is for a state like Florida that has developed its own, embracing these products, bringing a 10th Amendment lawsuit on behalf of its citizens against FDA.
I could, yeah, and then of course you have to remember the one important factor, and that's money. You got to have money to do this. You're not going to go in there with the lawyer that you found on the bus on the side of a bus,
especially if it's the one that the guy hit while he was driving on DA. The advertisement might have gotten hit, but no, it cost a lot of money. It cost a lot of money to litigate.
Yeah.
Anything.
I always wondered if that was possible. Like someone, well, you could say that you got an injury because you had to get in your car and you got in an accident to go buy a pack of cigarettes.
Well, and then there's also the thing too of sovereign immunity that FDA will claim.
Yeah.
They'll claim that they will claim that they are immune from suit by you.
Yeah. I mean, I've asked other people, can you remember any other product that had issues with flavor through the FDA? We got to be one of the first, right?
The only other product I can remember that had an issue, and it was flavor, it was color. Remember years ago they made him take the red M&Ms away?
Oh yeah. Well, they're doing that now again with the Skittles, right?
Because it was the dye in the red M&Ms.
Yeah. But I mean that they didn't throw in the kids. The red was targeting the kids. Greg, damn it! I mean, I was just starting to think about that the other day, and it's just like, I mean, their whole playing card was flavors for a long time and how it attracted teens, but never considered the fact that we ourselves enjoy flavor. I don't go into a restaurant and say, give me a steak with no seasoning whatsoever. Or I want my soup to taste like water. Or what I mean?
Right. I mean, everybody except the British put seasoning in everything. This is the ultimate thing that we have to think about for the future if this industry is going to survive.
Yeah.
Is what do we want the industry to look like, or more maybe specifically, what can we tolerate the industry looking like?
Yeah. We always talk about playing the other team's playbook, beating them to their own game. What could this industry take from their playbook and use against them?
You mean as in like the anti-tobacco groups?
Yeah. We're kind of limited. We can't advertise. We can't. We can't. Well, we can publish stuff in newspapers, but nobody's got the money for that. And where are they going to place it in a newspaper? And who the fuck still reads it?
They're not going to. What we can do, and the best thing we can do is expose their conflicts of interest. And that's if you read any of the AVM right. Twitter threads.
Yes.
And that's a lot of that's Allison. They are unmerciful on FDA and the ants groups.
Yeah.
As they should be.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I was always like, I mean, just as someone on the outside looking in this industry and seeing what's going on and seeing the benefits and seeing, well, it just doesn't make any sense to me that these people outside of our circle are not like scratching their head going, what the fuck is going on over there with this? Why are they attacking this product? There's so many products that just float on by, and here you are worrying about nicotine and flavors and youth, and everyone knows, they're throwing out all this bullshit, but everybody knows, like, oh, nicotine, all of a sudden nicotine is this bad thing. But for 150 years while it's being studied, it's being used for all these other medicines, and it's been a lifesaver. And now we're finding out all these other benefits that nicotine has when it comes to, you know, Alzheimer's, dementia, and some of the other issues. And it just doesn't make sense to me that someone doesn't go, hey, what the hell's going on over there? Why don't you just leave these people alone? They're not hurting anybody.
Well, and also, too, if you notice that there really was a stepped-up effort pre-COVID, right before the start of COVID and during COVID, anti-vaping. You know why?
Right.
Guess what else nicotine kills?
Oh, it killed. Yeah, that's right. I remember it. It killed. I can't say the word because we get anytime you say that word on YouTube, their algorithm picks it up.
Well,
We're not
I know that one of my clients actually has got 70 plus employees, all in the same city or in the same area.
Yeah.
70, and when COVID hit, not a one of them got. I say when the Chinese flu hit, not a one of them got sick.
Yeah.
They all vape. Not a one of them got sick. 70 people, that's statistically relevant.
Yeah. That's, you bring up a good point, because that's one of the things that's so frustrating as a vapor is having these organizations that we have trust in, that are supposed to have our best interests in mind, and they're out putting false information out there, especially like with the situation with Ivali. How many of those lives could they have saved or prevented that illness if they would have just gotten the true information out there, instead of focusing on flavors and vaping?
And I agree. And here's the sad part: is CDC knew early on what it was, and the reason they knew that is that some of the health departments in the states that legalized marijuana were telling them what was causing the problem. The problem is there's a desired narrative, okay, and that desired narrative is going to be, heated, no matter the effect.
Yeah.
And so the bad thing is that, yes, people do get sick and people do die because that agency is not going to come off its narrative, and that agency is never going to admit that it was wrong.
Right. Years later.
No, they won't. No, they won't.
Yeah.
You're not going to see any of these agencies ever admit they're wrong.
Yeah.
Because the federal government especially never admits it's wrong.
Right. Well, that was the frustrating part, is we couldn't get that message out there, and no one wanted to listen to us. But from day one, everybody was saying, "Hey guys, this isn't this isn't e-liquid we're talking about. This is THC we're talking about. That they're talking about." But we couldn't get that message out. Nobody wanted to listen to us. So, oh, hey Nick, you're safe. I see Nick Orlando. So you're not being what would Nick have? Tornadoes or hurricanes? Or they get both there, right?
They get both there.
They get both. Lucky you guys. Yeah, it was very frustrating because nobody wanted to listen to us, because everyone is just wants to believe what the CDC says, wants to believe what the FDA says, when everybody out there knew that these patients were lying when they were telling, because they didn't want to get in trouble for vaping THC. Everybody knew that right away. Everybody knew that was the first reason. Let's just pin it on vaping. I'm vaping e-liquid, and
what we did here is we actually met with our local police department, and we helped educate them as to what this was. We had, not specimens, but photos, and here's what to look for. Here's what to tell your officers to look for, and if they see this, they need to confiscate these products.
Yeah.
Whether they arrest anybody or not, they still need to confiscate them because these are dangerous products.
Yeah.
And they were unaware. They were totally unaware.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but do you think that they even went into that process of trying to figure out? Well, they knew. I'm assuming they knew right away it was black market stuff. It wasn't an actual product that was coming off the shelves of some store.
Right.
But do you think the CDC actually went out and tested e-liquid that was out there in that area?
Absolutely not.
I knew that. I
They
just wanted to hear
didn't.
somebody else say that.
They knew it. They knew that it wasn't even e-liquids. They knew it wasn't nicotine products. They knew that it was THC. They knew the source of it. They knew what was going on, and the telltale signs are. You look at what the retail price point was selling this stuff on the street,
Right.
versus what the retail price point is selling the same products or legitimate products in a dispensary.
Yeah.
There's a reason why these things were $20 or $30 a cart on the street, as opposed to 50 or so in a dispensary.
Yeah. And this is not, I may sound like an asshole, but I also want to say to everyone that, and I'm sorry that you got sick and you lost your lungs or whatever, but you know what? Fuck you for not telling them the truth, because you put out that information, and you yourself as a patient could have saved the next person, but you chose to go that route to keep yourself safe from mom and dad, which is bullshit to me. And that's how I look at it. I look at it. That's like, well, I hate saying it, but that's like the guy that has AIDS and says fuck it and goes out there and just, gives 10 people AIDS. It's the same thing. Every single one of those people that had gotten sick, they knew what they used. They knew what they were getting. They knew what product it was. And they would rather have 10 other people get it than just to say the truth that, hey, I got this off the street. It's black market. It's THC. It has nothing to do with e-liquid. Am I an asshole
Even
saying
more
that?
No, no, absolutely, you're not. It's even more basic than that. I may even become a bigger one than you are. The people that mainly got this, they knew they were buying a product off the street.
Right.
They should have known that product was black market simply because of the price point.
Right. Well,
They
it also
unnecessarily
makes
took
me wonder
risks.
it also makes me wonder, did they even get any samples, or did they actually get the product? These doctors, did they come into the hospital? A lot of times when someone gets sick, well, maybe not so much these people, but it's like, hey, I took this. You know what I mean, Greg? It's like, hey, I took this and I got sick. You know what I mean? That's how it usually works.
I read some articles. I read some articles about this back in 19 when this was going on, and some of the symptoms that the patients were exhibiting and complaining about were symptoms of hydrogen cyanide poisoning.
Yeah.
Which the reason why they would have that symptom is the oil that was used to make the cartridge hadn't been purified. So all the pesticides that had been used on that plant, and oh, by the way, this was weed. This was weed cartel weed that was being used. And how you know that is there were stories they actually caught people coming across the border with buckets of the unprocessed oil, THC oil.
Yeah, it was just frustrating for me because we all knew it, but no one wanted to listen to us because, like I said, everybody out there was like, "Hey, this is the CDC, this is the FDA. They're not going to lie to us. They got our best interest in mind. They're there to protect us. They're there to make sure we don't take bad pills or bad medicine." And it's just like, everybody that I knew right away that this wasn't e-liquid.
Oh, absolutely. And the one thing that we look at things a lot differently now than we did pre-COVID.
Yeah.
We look at, and not just us as people in the vape industry, but just people in general in the United States. A good number of them look at things through a different lens now than they did pre-COVID, with a distrust of healthcare authorities because of how COVID was handled, how the lockdowns were handled, how many people think, rightfully or wrongfully, that it was a moving target. So there's a lot of distrust among people now involving um, the healthcare authorities, and it's not just COVID related.
Yeah.
Um, as this abortion issue has ramped up,
Oh yeah.
the issue over the abortion pill has been litigated, and FDA's changes, and that got thrown out a couple weeks ago by the Fifth Circuit.
Yeah.
The the post 2016 changes that got thrown out,
Yeah.
and the courts said is FDA didn't follow the hoops and go through the right process to expand the use of this product.
Yeah.
And when it becomes when politics or profits take precedence over safety
You said it.
and purpose, being a beneficial purpose, then that is a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we've got, unfortunately, federal health organizations and FDA, CDC, NIH that are compromised.
Oh, big time. Big time.
And that's one of the things that Robert F. Kennedy, his Jr., has been pointing out, is the conflicts of interest, the revolving door that is the federal health agencies with the regulated parties. And if you look no more than when Gottlieb rolled off, goes on Pfizer's board. You see him on TV talking about the updated vaccines. Well, gee, guess who makes the updated vaccines? Pfizer.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here. Not Gottlieb, but Zeller. Who's Zeller going to work for?
Yeah. Curtis, that's why I didn't check that box.
There you go.
I didn't check it. None of your fucking business.
But look who Zeller went to go work for. Look who is the revolving door of these folks.
Yeah. Yeah. I just watched something the other day about an employee of the FDA that processed something that should have never went through, and then left the FDA. And then all of a sudden, he was the only guy that had to okay this certain drug. I don't know what it was. I can't remember what it was. It was a documentary I was watching, and he was the only one that could say yes or no to it. Ends up going to a hotel. This pharmaceutical company brings him into a hotel. He stays at a hotel for they pay for everything for 3 or 4 days, and then all of a sudden he comes back and he says that it's in there. He feels that this product will be okay or something fishy, basically saying, yeah, I can't remember what the exact words were. So it gets passed through the FDA, ends up leaving the FDA, and then a year later taking a job with this pharmaceutical company. So going from making $50,000 a year with the FDA to over $200,000 a year with that same pharmaceutical company that he approved the drug for. If that's not fishy, I don't know what the hell is.
Oh, it absolutely is fishy. And pardon me, I'm getting some more of my drink. It's not, nothing to see here, folks. Move along. It's absolutely fishy. There should be an absolute hard stop on someone leaving an agency management, and going to a regulated party within a certain period of time. There should be a blackout period. Excuse me.
Yeah. I can't remember what drug it was, but it was some, I can't remember at all. But he was the only one that could have decided yay or nay on it. Ends up giving him an okay after spending 3 days at some hotel in Florida or something like that, all paid for by the pharmaceutical company.
I mean, look at it this way. Imagine a scenario where I've represented a client for a long, long time. I have all the inside skinny of that client. I then decide to quit representing that client, go to work for another firm, and represent the other side.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be allowed.
Yeah. Nick says, I think the cops are at Greg's door.
No.
Oh
Actually, I would
man,
hear him drive. I would hear him drive up if they were. So
yeah. Woo, I got some fun questions for you. We got about a half an hour, so I'm going to hit
yeah,
you
go
with
ahead.
some fun. All right. Where's the one that I wanted to ask you? These are some new ones that we've asked. I'm not sure if we hit you with these or not, but is there one band or musician you would love to party with, Greg?
I would have.
Dead or alive? Dead or alive?
I would love to have hung around with Morrison.
Yeah.
I think
Sober Morrison or fucked up Morrison?
sober Morrison for sure. I maintain that he is the most brilliant entertainer ever as far as IQ. The guy had an eidetic memory.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this or not. He had a library. He was just a voracious reader. And he had such an eidetic memory that he would love to do this challenge to people. He'd say, pull any book off any shelf, turn to any page in that book and start reading from it. And he would be able to tell them what book it was, what page they were on. Yeah.
I wish they would have kind of showed a little bit of that in the movie. That would have been interesting to see. I had no idea. Well, most of those, what I'm finding out here lately is which is surprising, that a lot of these high end musicians that are just superstars. It seems like a majority of them have these super high IQs, like in the 145s, 150s, 160 range, which makes sense.
He was a genius. He had a genius level IQ, and it's sad that he died at such a young age, because can you imagine him, a middle-aged Jim Morrison, being a literature professor at Harvard or Stanford or Berkeley or someplace?
Yeah. Yeah, can you imagine? He wouldn't be touring the state fairs playing still with the tours. I can guarantee you that today.
Well, he'd be 80 years old if he were alive. So you
can party
but
with
he was. I would love to have met him back in the day and just spent some time with him, just talking to him, because he was well read. He was well versed on a lot of topics. And I've heard interviews with him before. He was very insightful.
Yeah. Heroin and peyotes, I'll quote Chappelle, is one hell of a drug.
Well, that's the thing. With Morrison, either you got a brilliant performance or you got just a lousy performance. And it all was a function of how much he'd had to drink or how much drugs he had.
Yeah. He was more of a, I know he dabbled in drugs and stuff, but to me, I've always felt like he was more of an alcoholic than he was a drug addict. Would that be fair to say?
He used a lot of LSD.
Yeah,
he used a lot of pot, and he used a lot of heroin.
Yeah. Let me see here. If you, well, this one's an interesting. This is Allie's question. It's a new one that we've had added to the list. And what is the best piece of advice you ever been given?
Don't get too optimistic. Don't get too pessimistic. Everything tends to work out.
Yeah.
And this was from one of my mentors, is that it came in context of the work we do, is don't get too optimistic when you win something. Don't get too pessimistic if you lose something. At the end of the day, everything tends to even out.
I like that. I have a lawyer question for you. Does Greg have a routine before he goes to court? Are you know what I'm talking about? You know how baseball players have a thing. I know, Lord, do you have a thing? Do you have, like, I got to wear these socks for court day?
I don't. I really don't. It's be prepared.
Be prepared.
You do not want to walk into a courtroom unprepared, because there's no quicker way to get skinned.
Yeah.
And you have a sense, and you have to have a sense of humor too, and you have to know your judges.
Yeah, I have noticed that. Even they kind of show a lot of that on TV, but I've noticed that here, like when I go to court, it's just anytime I'm at court, it just feels like the lawyers and the judges are playing golf together. Like they know each other so well. And it's
they do. And the fact is, the judges themselves are former lawyers.
Yeah.
And you might, I'm at the age now, I've been practicing long enough that when I started practicing, all of the judges were predominantly, all of them were significantly older than I am. Some, as much as 20, 30 years older than me. And a lot of them were men. So you had these old men were judges.
Yeah.
Well, now I've been around long enough that on our district court, every freaking one of them's younger than me.
Yeah, they are starting to be a lot younger. Us out here, we've seen out here in Modesto. We've been a lot of the judges, the newer judges, are much younger than I remember them being.
And also another thing too, there's 18 judges on our district court. Only one of them is male.
I'm trying to pull up ours because we have a pretty young group. We just had a new one that was just put in. Let's see here. Oh no, wrong thing. I clicked the wrong thing. Present. I must present. Share screen. Modesto judges. There.
That is a fairly young group. I mean, everyone on our district court, I think everyone's under 50.
Wow. Yeah. See, same here. Same here. I mean, look at him. He can't be, but I don't know, early 50s.
Well, and the one thing about Trump, like him or hate him, Trump's lasting legacy is going to be the effect he had on the federal judiciary.
Yeah.
And for the most part, the judges he appointed are young.
Young judges.
Yes. He especially on the appeals courts. I mean, there are some judges on the appeals courts aren't even 40 yet.
Wow, really?
And like the Judge Walker, who and Judge Rao, who were on the Farnham opinion. Yeah. I think if either of them are 45 yet, it'd be pushing it. Think crazy. How long they're going to be there. Say they have a 30-year career.
Yeah. Well, that's a kind of I know it's kind of a sad thing to think, but it's kind of like it's like our industry is kind of waiting for that new generation to step in, that younger generation that that's coming in behind this older group that may be more accepted to vaping and understand how it works and the need for it in the community and how it's going to benefit healthcare in this country. And I don't know how long we're going to have to wait for that, but until these I hate saying old geezers get out of there, but it just seems like that's where we're kind of at. Let's just kind of string this along until we can get this new generation to come in that is going to be more accepted to vaping.
Well, and yes, and it's deceiving in several respects. One, do you know who one of our biggest in the court, at least if judges go, advocates has been? Is Judge Edith Jones of the Fifth Circuit.
Yeah.
Edith Jones is in her 70s.
In her 70s. Yeah.
Okay. And also, if you remember in Triton, the surprise switcheroo stay opinion was written by Judge Eric Oldham. Again, he's a guy he's probably early 40s at most.
Oh. Well, yeah. If you could put any franchise restaurant in your house, what would it be, Greg?
I can't because I'm diabetic and I can't have that kind of stuff much anymore.
Oh, but if you could, what would it be?
Probably Popeyes.
Popeyes. Ew. If you could be the best in the world at something, what would it be? Don't say lawyer.
If I could be the best in the world at anything, I would love to be a baseball player.
Ball player, yeah.
I would love to be
Ellie. Right?
I would love to be Ellie De La Cruz.
Yeah, but you would want to be a ball player with the paycheck of today, but not a ball player from the paycheck to the 70s and 80s, right?
Yeah. Imagine getting to be Mike Trout.
Yeah. Ooh.
Or Shohei.
Yeah. First round. Yeah.
And I mentioned Ellie. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about.
Trout to me is, I'm going to have a lot of people hate me out there, but the best ball player ever in baseball. period.
Have you? Well, I don't know. Williams was pretty darn good. Williams hit for average and for power. You know, when the guy's 38 years old and he hits almost 400.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a guy who comes back from Korea.
So you got to remember, no relief pitchers back then, no specialized pitching back then. You had the guy that
think about Williams. But think about Williams. This is a guy who has spent 2 years, the better part of 2 years, flying combat missions in Korea. Hasn't swung a bat. Comes back his very first, and they didn't send him on a rehab assignment. Do whatever. And he came back in his very first game, hit a home run.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's either you got it or you don't.
I get what you're saying. I just different era of baseball, different pitching styles in those decades. You had pitchers that were playing 3 games in a row with pitch with arms that were just barely hanging on. 300 pitch count. Back to back double headers. It was a whole different. You didn't have what you have today. I think if Williams is in today's, yes, he's still a great hitter, but I don't think he's a great hitter when you start getting into the latter innings where you have the specialty guys that come in the 6th inning, the guy that comes in the 7th inning, and your closer.
I don't think it would have mattered with him. I really don't think it would have mattered. This guy had 20/10 vision. He saw stuff. He see the ball coming in. He was incredible, and it was so scientific. And plus, you have to remember, he didn't have the advanced nutrition we have today. He didn't have the analytics we have today. The video and stuff. This guy was so fastidious about his training. Imagine if he had video, so he knew what was going to be thrown. He and the scouting is obviously better today. He would know. You might be an 8th inning pitcher, but he knows exactly what's coming. And the batter, if they know what's coming, they can hit it.
But they had no Mario Rivera back then. They didn't have any friggin' Clemens.
It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered.
All right.
I think Ty Cobb, if he was in his prime playing today, would still hit 400.
Yeah. Say goodbye to Jamie. Jamie.
Night.
Yeah. What is your favorite line in a movie? Any movie? What was your favorite line?
Leave the gun, take the cannolis.
Hey, that's three. That's 3 of us that love that line. The best line ever, right there. That is classic.
That, and I'll make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'll make you an offer. How many times my uncle would say that? Hey, you cut my lawn, and I'd say no.
I'll make him an offer he can't refuse.
And I had to listen because I am Sicilian, so he's old school Sicilian.
You heard that? Yeah, you heard about the Chinese Godfather.
No.
He made you an offer you couldn't understand.
You couldn't understand. All right, let me see. I think I hit you with all the new ones that we had on the show. We had you don't vape, correct?
Nope, never smoked.
You never smoked, yeah. So I can't hit you with the flavor one. I got you with the music one. If you could be the best at the world, we did that one. If you could have a lifetime supply, we did that one. You gave me your best piece of advice. I think you hit all the new ones.
Nah.
Yeah, I think you did hit all the new ones. We already know that you do enjoy pineapple on your pizza.
No. I can't have pizza that often. That's the problem.
I know. Yeah, I think I got you with all the new ones. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about some things that you're working on and anything that you see in the near future that you may be involved in.
Well, I'm trying to work both the legal and political end of this game, because I think at some point, if we get a legal resolution, then we're going to have a political resolution. And I've seen enough of this, and I hope folks realize, as long as we have the Tobacco Control Act in its present form governing us, it's going to be very difficult to, weave that path.
Right.
It's going to take us breaking the system and then getting a seat at the table to recreate that system.
Yeah.
So I'm working on one of the things I've worked on is with one of the national trade associations. Won't say who because we're sort of doing this behind the scenes. But it's the same trade association that is also working with the House Oversight Committee. Remember the letter that was sent out several months ago? They're working with the Oversight Committee, working on draft legislation so that if the time is right, that we do get, say, a win in Triton. There's also been discussion among some of the attorneys about bringing another lawsuit. If we win Triton, bring the suit within one of the district courts in the Fifth Circuit to get us to the Fifth Circuit to seek a national injunction against FDA until they develop a product standard for flavored products.
Right.
So they can't do anything on PMTAs until they basically it would be to try to nationalize
Some sort of
Triton
standard
win.
system. Yeah, I mean that to me that's we joke about it. It's one of the running jokes here. We'll take they keep moving the goalpost or they keep moving the goal line on us, and it's finally great to see that they've gotten caught with what's the old saying, they've gotten caught with their hand in a cookie jar for once. So
they have, and the win with it was a partial win with Fontum actually helps. Yeah. It's very good because this is remember Fontum was the first case that has addressed tobacco flavored and menthol flavored alone. So that was a good, for them to say it was a surprise switcheroo with regard to those products,
both,
is big. So that's it was an interesting ruling. But let's say we do get some legal relief. That we're not going to be just left alone. We know the anti-tobacco groups will run to Congress and try to get, and Congress on its own won't let this go. We have actually, I believe, a good opportunity because we've got divided government.
Right.
And so if the system does get broken and there has to be a legislative fix to it, it's going to have to be a compromise fix.
Yeah.
Something that we can agree to, something the Republicans can agree to, something the Democrats can agree to, and basically find the common ground and run with it.
Yeah.
I want to float something that is arbitrary and capricious. Absolutely, Nick, you're right. You're right.
Our other lawyer from Florida.
and the thing is, we didn't have a seat at the table when the Tobacco Control Act was written.
That's right.
We know a lot more about this now, and as is the case in many circumstances. Do you know who helps the agency write the regulations and who helps Congress write the laws? The regulated entities. Because who else knows that industry better than the people who are involved in it?
Right.
It's not, they want to be regulated because they don't want the bad actors out there. They want to make it difficult to get into the industry from the outside.
Yeah.
What do you think the automobile industry helps write the laws that apply to cars and fuel emissions and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
Same with the oil companies. Same with exactly. Who better knows than the people who are being regulated how it needs to be done?
Yeah.
So if we can get a seat at the table, I think we'll get something we need. Now, what I want to float out there is what kind of industry can we live with going forward? What can it look? What's it need to look like?
That's
the question we need to ask.
Yeah, I thought about that.
And would people be willing in this industry to restrict the sale of flavored products to adult-only stores?
Yeah. No, I thought about that. That's a great point because that's always been an issue since the beginning. With the distributors, with the vape shops, with the websites, with the the shop owners. Everybody wants something, and the other one doesn't want that because it's going to affect them. And when this is all settled, whatever is presented, is it going to be enough to keep all that group happy? With regulations and with e-liquid and some sort of ID check system. I mean, it's going to be technical, it's going to be expensive, and it's probably not going to benefit the vape shop in the end. Am I right?
Well, it depends. If a vape flavored products are restricted to adult only stores, and that would include pods, disposables, and open tanks,
Yeah.
then I think you're going to see a new flourishing day of for vape shops.
Yeah.
Imagine what it was like back in 15 and 16.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would be more than happy to have a store where I have to use my ID to get in. I wouldn't mind that one bit. I wouldn't mind having, like, we don't have one here, but the liquor store like they do back east in Philadelphia. When I was in Philly,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted some Jack Daniels. They're like, dude, you can't buy that here. You got to go to the liquor store. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I mean, we have rows and rows of it in our supermarket, but I have to go here. I mean, I wouldn't mind that. I would be more than happy to have a system set up like that where there are individual shops that are just based on tobacco products that you have to be an adult to go in there. But is that enough that I hate bringing up the word black market. I mean, there's always going to be a black market. Don't you think that would draw an even bigger black market?
I don't think so. There's always going to be a black market no matter what you have. Okay, there are gun shops galore, but you have a lot of guns sold on the street that are ghost guns.
Yeah.
There's always going to be that. You're never going to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But you don't have a huge black market when I say black market, like you used to during Prohibition for alcohol.
Yeah.
Because you don't have speakeasies anymore.
Hey, well, Biden
don't
wants
have
to only have 2 drinks. He's urging for only 2 drinks, 2 drinks a week.
Yeah, he gets reelected. People are going to need to drink a whole lot more.
I saw that article. I started shaking my head. I was like, seriously? You're
and I'll tell you, I'm going to make this prediction right now. Biden and Harris will not be the Democratic ticket in 2024.
No. I see them dropping out.
The Democratic ticket, no, they're going to get pushed out. Dropping out is not the question. They're going to get pushed out. It's not going to happen until after Labor Day. And here's why. And this is why the whole Hunter thing has been a slow drip. And it's been drip and drip and drip and drip and drip. They don't want it all coming out at once because they can't slide Biden out too quickly. And the reason is, if Newsom is the desired party candidate by the people that run the party, if Biden gets slid out too soon, well, what's going to happen? You're going to have Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and all these other folks, Amy Klobuchar and all these other folks jump in the race to run that have no shot of winning, but they're going to take money away. It's going to take resources away. They want to make this clean.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing is they're holding Biden in long enough to freeze the field.
Yeah.
Late enough that it would be impossible for another party to come in and do a fundraising to be viable in a primary.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, the first primaries are the end of January, 1st of February.
Yeah.
That's not that long off.
No, it's not. It's not.
And what you would need to raise money to have a viable presidential campaign, if not announcing soon after Labor Day, you ain't going to have time to get in it. So they're keeping the field frozen, and it's going to be Newsom and Whitmer.
Yeah. Well, I had a poll.
Will be your Democratic ticket.
Yeah, I had a poll on just for shits and giggles on Twitter. I'm calling it Twitter. I don't care what you say, people. And Twitter. And my question today was, if you had to vote today, right now, and there was an option for the presidential ballot that said none of the above, would you check that box? 60% of the people said yes, they would check the none of the above. 26% said no, and 13% said I don't vote.
Well, and the apathy on both sides.
Yeah.
And this song that came out, Northman, north of Richmond, that guy hit a chord.
Yeah.
And he didn't hit a chord with one demographic. He hit a chord with everybody.
Yeah. It's a scary thing when everyone would vote that way. It's scary because that's the media, and sometimes that's what scares me is, the media sets the agenda and sets their goals and who they want in there, and they're going to dictate how that information gets out there, and it sways sides. And to me, I think people need to start realizing that the media is not so trustworthy. And what is Nick talking about ARs? What do you? You got Nick all upset and flustered with gun talk there, Greg. You
Well,
mentioned
I'll give you
guns.
an example. I'll give you an example. We do not have politicians anymore, especially people in D.C., that are true statesmen. We used to have a senator here, John Sherman Cooper, was an institution from Kentucky. And I remember Ted Kennedy being interviewed. And Ted Kennedy and John Sherman Cooper had nothing in common. John Sherman Cooper was from the rural area, hills of Kentucky. Ted Kennedy was, Massachusetts blue blood. One was liberal, one was very conservative. But I remember Teddy Kennedy saying one time that when he got elected to the Senate, he asked his brother John, if I want the unvarnished truth about anything, who in D.C. do I need to talk to? And he said, John Sherman Cooper.
Yeah. Who would that be today?
You know what? I think it would be Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would have a hard time answering that question right now. If you would ask
I think it would be Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana.
Yeah. Well, Greg, I want to thank you. I know this was a little bit different than what we had in planned to do, but I wanted to have a little bit of fun with you and ask you some questions. And I think a lot of us had on our mind because a lot of us, like I said, I had no idea that it was live on YouTube. So I'm going to look for that next time. But I always assumed a lot of this stuff was behind closed doors. And a lot of times the general public didn't really get to see that until there was an actual result from it, or what the news media considered newsworthy to get out there. But those were some of the questions I wanted to get answered, and just how your process was. And that was, to me, it kind of gives me a general idea, the amount of work that you're having to go through each time when you're having to go through these cases in court. And I can just not imagine. You have staffers, right? Are you writing
No,
these?
I work for myself, and I am the firm.
You are the paralegal and lawyer.
I'm the chief cook and bottle washer, and if you call my office, I answer my phone. I put my time in. I'd generate the bills. I do everything. And generally, as a rule of thumb, you talked about the time involved. Generally, as a rule of thumb, for every hour you spend either in a deposition or in court, is 4 to 5 hours of prep time for that hour.
Wow. See, that's what I'm saying. I mean, what would just throw me out a number? What would be a typical brief? Your briefs? How many pages are we talking? What would be a typical one?
Well, nowadays it's not so much pages; it's words, because in federal court, or in federal appeals courts, it's a word count.
Oh,
and for instance, like for a merits brief, I think it's 13,000 words.
Holy shit! I have a hard time trying to come up with 500 for a blog.
You say that, but I know when I did all the briefs in the MDO cases, the amicus briefs, whatever, you would have to trim down.
Wow!
To get within your word count. To get within your word
count. Guys out there, can you imagine having to come up with 13,000 words? No, I couldn't do it. Well, I appreciate everything.
When you get a complicated case, and this is complicated, and part of the reason it took so long is, remember, we're dealing with judges that are generalists. They're not experts in this field. They're not even experts in administrative law. They're generalists, and extremely busy generalists. We need to make the point to them, but also explain things to them on a level that they're going to be able to understand as a generalist what we're talking about.
Right. Well, you also have, I mean, a lot of these judges are I may be wrong on this, but they're always looking back on precedent, right? So something that happened maybe 20 years ago can still affect something that is current today. So
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And the one thing about the law is constantly changing,
right.
and technology has helped us in the regard that if a new decision came out, we might not know about it for several weeks. Well,
Right.
now it's on Westlaw and Lexis almost immediately, and we've got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I love lawyer shows. I watch a lot of lawyer shows. Like I said, I just finished watching Suits, and seeing the paralegals having to dig back like a case that happened in early 1900s, and I'm thinking to myself, that's got to be insane that a specific lawyer could remember that case. I mean, probably studied it in school, and it came back one day and it hit him. It was like, hey, this happened before. This is precedent. This is going to help us in our case. I just can't imagine that. It's just mind-boggling. Now
I mean, there are certain cases that you learned in law school, you studied in law school in a particular class that become so ingrained in your brain that I can still tell you that the case, the name of the case, and what it stands for.
That's crazy. We all out here appreciate everything that you're doing for this industry. And hopefully, like Nick said, win the day. I love that saying. Nick says that all the time. And I love that saying, win the day. But yeah, again, thank you for coming on here and having a little bit of fun and just talking law.
And you hope people also get the idea that we're not stodgy, those kind of people, stuck up people. We are human people. We have emotions. We have feelings. We know right from wrong. In some respects, I think we've got a more finely tuned sense of right and wrong than a lot of people do.
Yeah,
because of our training.
I do. The lawyers get that. They get that. As far as even as far as I can remember back, it was like they're snakes, they're snakes, they're snakes, and I would always say to myself, well, if they're snakes, I mean, they've done a lot of good. Look around. I mean, a lot of stuff that you see that you are able to have today is because some lawyer fought for it. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, why do we have segregated schools today? Because Thurgood Marshall years ago fought for it. Why do we have some of the things the equal rights? Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a litigator for many years, fought for equality.
Yeah.
How did gay marriage get legalized? Because a group of lawyers from here in Louisville was part of that.
Yeah.
Fought for it.
No, we appreciate it, and hopefully one day we can actually get online during this show and just say it's all over and hold up that newspaper that says vaping wins. Someday.
I hate to tell you, that's really great, and I hope it happens, but it's never going to be over. We may win some battles. We may get ourselves in a sort of a détente position. We may get some regulatory relief, some legislative relief that will allow us to survive, but we're always going to have the anti-tobacco groups nipping at our heels.
Yeah. Like I said, that seems to be the thing with me. It just seems like everything kind of is just getting stretched out to come to some sort of conclusion in the end. And my biggest fear is, how that's going to affect not just one part of the industry, but the whole industry, and keep it all vile. Whether it's the vape shop, whether it's the website sell, or the AMPM, the mini mark stores, and all that is all part of the reason that vaping is successful today. Is it wasn't for the disposables in those retail stores. That guy, we talk about, that guy that's standing in line one day that just says, "Hey, today's the day." That guy's not going to walk. That guy is not going to be walking into a vape shop. It's that spur of the moment thing. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, hey, you know what? I'm tired of spending $13 on a pack of cigarettes. I'm going to give this a try. Hopefully. But that's my biggest fear. I want a resolution, and I hope it comes someday. And I know that's going to be quite a ways down the road, but I'm hoping that resolution benefits the whole industry as a whole and the whole group, and not take away that group that started it all. That's going to get pushed out for big business. That's my biggest fear.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the case. But, the truth is, you look at the automobile industry, and you look, say, in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, even the early into 50s. How many car manufacturers did you have?
Oh, yeah, there was a shit ton.
And guess what? Now we're down to the big three.
Yep. There was so many. It was insane. I watched that documentary on that, and I a lot of names that I of course I'm born in '69. I didn't know about those, but all those names and all these manufacturers that were all gone. Yeah, so it's insane. Well, Henry Ford was a son of a bitch. Let's be honest.
No, but you know what? Henry Ford was an innovator.
Yeah,
And but the concept of the assembly line, okay?
Yeah.
The concept of making a product that is priced so that your employees can afford to buy it.
Yeah.
Was a stroke of genius.
Yeah. All right, Greg, we are out of here. Thank you for joining us. It was awesome having you. We'll have you back on for part 3. But hopefully we'll have.
Oh yeah, definitely. Actually, part 4.
Part 4.
Part 4.
I want to thank everybody in chat. I want to apologize. I haven't really been paying attention to the chat. I'm sorry. I'm by myself, so I'm trying to run everything. But I was kind of excited I actually got a one-on-one with Greg, and that was something I wanted to do for quite a while, and just kind of get my answers and my questions answered, because I had a lot of them floating around. So, and I hope some of my questions answer some of your guys' questions, because I'm not a lawyer. I've been to divorce court and traffic court. That's it. So I only know what I see there. So I wanted to get a bird's eye view of exactly what's going on with these depositions and with all these different court cases. So I appreciate you answering my questions, Greg. And we will see everybody next Wednesday. Hopefully no hurricanes, no tornadoes. Everybody will have their power. But again, thank you, everybody. And Greg, you can stick around if you want to, or you can take off.
Yeah, sure. Here. No, I'll stick around. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks again. Let me push this button right here.